Hi, this is Dan. Welcome to another Skull Sessions. And today my guest is Kane Gallagher. Is that
Yep.
correct? All right, good.
Yep.
All right, man. So, what do you got going on?
Okay, so right now we're promoting Kickstarter for my first graphic novel, which is called The Underclass,
Okay.
and essentially it's an 80-page story. I've got a pre-launch issue here that I've been selling at conventions, but it's 80-page story about basically it's a high school that teaches kids to be criminals.
Okay.
So it's kind of like Sin City meets Deadly Class.
Okay.
Um, so when I came up with a concept for it, it was essentially what if Sin City was set in a high school?
Okay.
Yeah, and from there I thought, okay, well, why would a high school be so violent? You know what I mean? There's no real reason for it. And then I thought, oh, okay, well, what if the school
Well,
made
you
them
haven't been to
violent?
U.S. high schools. Like
Well,
mine,
true, yeah.
mine had an office of the sheriff's department in the school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Wow.
They had a cop there 24/7. Well,
Oh,
maybe not 24/7, but the entire time the school was open, the police officer was stationed there. I remember the
that's
first day.
crazy.
The first day, a kid was knifed. He had like all his intestines hanging out. Yeah.
Whoa, okay. Well, maybe this isn't as far-fetched as I thought it was then. Well, it does get pretty brutal. I mean, there are some parts in there that you're probably going to stop and go, "Whoa, okay, that might be a little too extreme for me." So it's definitely not for kids, But I didn't pull any punches, put it that way. I went through lots of rounds of editing, and there was only one scene where I had to edit. The rest of it, I was like, no, I can't because it would just change the story too much. You know what I mean? It has to be brutal. And that
Okay.
kind of was my goal in the beginning. It just had to be as in your face and extreme as possible. And I think I achieved that. And especially with the artwork, I mean, I don't know if you know who Jeff Darrow is.
Yes.
Yeah, he was a big influence for me. I mean, I developed my style essentially copying his stuff and just like learning and developing my style through his work and then creating my own stuff.
Is it
So
pronounced Geoff or Jeff?
Jeff, I believe, yeah.
Okay,
It's
but it's
it's spelt weird though.
Geoff or OFF.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's
And
like what's that one you did with Frank Miller? It's like a three-issue series with the private eye that thinks he's a human, but he's really a robot.
yeah,
Hard
that's
boiled.
hard
That's what it's
boiled.
called.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That
Awesome.
was the first one of his I ever read, and it blew my mind, man. I
Oh
was like,
yeah,
that's this is
he's so
incredible.
detailed. It's kind of
Yeah,
like a Mobius with a more detailed touch.
exactly. And he learned a lot of his stuff from Mobius.
Oh,
He
did
studied with
he?
him.
That
Yeah, yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And those guys are like the godfather of that style, which is, you could call it ligne claire, which is a French word which means clear line. That's how they
Okay.
say it in France. In the Western culture, we call it hyper detail. But
Okay.
yeah, that's essentially what it is. It's just every panel you got to pack with as much detail as you possibly can. And that's always
Right.
been my goal. I want people to look at each panel for as long as possible and find something new every time they look at it.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like do you know who Tim Vigil is? Like he did Faust.
No, I don't think so. No, who
So
is he?
he's kind of like he's an American kind of like indie comic artist, so he's very well known in those circles in the US, but not really so much out of there. It also was like a big deal. I mean, this is old. This is like in the mid 80s,
Okay,
but
cool.
I feel like he's kind of like the Geoff Darrow of the US, but not as refined, not as good. Like I like
Right,
his
yeah.
stuff, but I feel like Geoff Darrow has it like either he went to art school or he like
Yeah.
studied art hardcore, so he knows all the technical aspects of it, and he kind of
Yeah.
goes over the top of the illustration. I feel like Tim Visual just kind of like wings it a little bit more. Like I still like his stuff. I don't mean to shit on it, but
Yeah.
I feel like he's kind of a similar vibe.
Yeah, there's a few guys that are like that in comics, especially because they all kind of learn from each other, you know what I mean? Especially in the 80s and the 90s. Another guy I'm really into is called what's his name? Juan Jose Rep. Have you ever heard of
I know who
him?
that is. Yeah.
He's a Spanish guy. But he's done work for Jeff Darrow. He's done work for what's that guy? The guy that did All-Star Superman, Grant Morrison, is it?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I know who
yeah,
Grant Morrison is, but Grant Morrison is the writer. Is this an
yeah,
artist you're talking about or a writer?
yeah. Well, he works with these writers. That's how good he is.
Oh
So
yeah,
he's
yeah.
worked with
Grant
Frank
Morrison is
Miller.
like top to top.
Yeah, he is.
Like
He's
one of my
I've
favorites
only
is
just
Alan Moore, and like
yeah.
kind of in the same league with Alan Moore. Like they mentioned Grant Morrison.
Yeah, and I didn't even like I'd had Grant Morrison comics in the past and I'd read them in graphic novels and stuff, but I didn't really pay attention to who wrote them. And my publisher recently introduced me to all of his other work. And then I was like, oh, I have read some of this guy's stuff. I didn't know he was that popular, but I love his stuff. You know what I mean? Like sometimes these things just kind of go past you and you go, oh, that was cool. And you just move on to the next book. But yeah, it's kind of a big deal apparently. But yeah, his
Yeah.
stuff's really cool.
Yeah, I always felt like well, like I read comics. I'm a bit older than you, and I remember when I first started reading like first they were just on Spinner Rex, and then when they started coming out with stuff that was like a little bit more adult oriented, like the Frank Miller and like Alan Moore
Yeah,
stuff. That was still like the mid '80s, and to me, like I was like 12 at the time, and I
yeah,
remember like there was nobody like that. And then because like they thought that Alan Moore wasn't going to make any money, they thought it'll give us a little bit of indie credit, and then it blew up. And then they're
yeah,
looking for the next Alan Moore. So Grant Morrison was one of those guys that came in all these people they gave a chance because Alan Moore was so successful. Like
yeah.
the Neil Gaimans and the Grant Morrisons and all the people that kind of like had that kind of like darker vision.
Yeah, I think you could say, these guys, some of them, they walked so the rest of us could run, really,
Yeah, basically,
because
yeah.
without
And
their
Alan Moore, just
influence.
a side note, Alan Moore got really fucked. Yeah. So
Oh, really?
oh yeah. So like he did Watchmen, and when he
Yeah,
did Watchmen, they bought Charleston comic characters. So they bought like Charleston went bankrupt, so they just bought them out, and they had all these characters that are very similar to the characters in Watchmen. But like one was the Fly, one was the Blue Beetle, and all this stuff. So they give to Alan Moore, and then Alan Moore started writing it, and they're like, "Wait, you're fucking up all these characters we just bought. We just bought it. We can't destroy them." So he had to like make up his own characters, but they're basically the Charleston characters. So he made them up for Watchmen, and then the kind of the deal with the Watchmen because they thought, okay, especially shops were like very small market at the time. They thought this won't do well, so we'll just put it out for the indie credit, and then it'll blow up. That'll blow us up. Like it'll give us like some
yeah,
recognition in the industry. Like, hey, look, we put out like this more adult stuff, but then we'll go back to the stuff that really makes us money. And so they
yeah,
told him that, they ask us to renew the rights like every, I think it's 6 months or every year or whatever. We just won't renew them and they'll all revert to you. And then when it came out and it like blew up and it was like in the New York Times, like one of the 100 best novels of the year. And so all this stuff was said about it. Oh, yeah, yeah, it got tons of praise. I remember when it came out, it revolutionized the industry. But, so they started selling they're like, oh wait, so we'll sell Watchmen watches and Watchmen hats and Watchmen shirts and all this stuff. And Alan Moore goes, all right, that's cool. Where's my percentage? And they go, oh no, this is the advertisement for a comic. So he didn't get any of that. And then when it came time to renew, they go, oh, well, it's a hit, and they've just renewed it ever since. So we got
Oh my
totally
God.
fucking screwed in the whole thing.
Jesus, that sucks because it's
And
just such
if you
brilliant
notice,
writing, and it would.
like with the Watchmen movie, it doesn't credit him because he demanded his name be taken off of it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I thought that was because he didn't like the way they filmed the movie. I thought that was the reason though.
No, no, it was like, they asked the director, they're like, that he didn't want this to be making into a movie. What do you think about that? He goes, oh well, I'm just gonna do my best, and I hope he'll see it and be like, that wasn't too bad. And then they interviewed Alan Moore, and he was like, fuck that guy, I will never watch his fucking movie. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, it's funny how so many like artists get screwed like that. I remember hearing, John Fogerty, who's a great, singer, songwriter, guitarist, and
Yeah, I knew he is. Yeah,
the production company owns all of his stuff, and
yeah.
that's why you see it in every movie, you see it in commercials and shit. He doesn't get paid anything for that. That's why I was in like three of his songs was in like Forrest Gump. He didn't get paid anything for those. You know what I mean? Like that sucks.
Yeah, unfortunately, that happened a lot. I know now with the explosion of indie comics, that's not nearly so much a thing. And
Mm.
I have like people like Brian Kane owns he's an American writer, and he's written some stuff for Hollywood and some of his own books. But he was talking about how he owns a comic shop too. Like I guess it's just a side passion of his or whatever. So he owns a comic shop. He's like maybe 3 to 4% of our sales are Marvel and DC. All the rest are indie comics. Like it's
Wow.
all indie comics.
That's really awesome to hear. I mean, I've kind of had similar experiences where I've just started putting my stuff into comic stores, and as soon as I walk in and show them my stuff, they go, "Okay, let's move all the DC and Marvel stuff out of the way because we don't care about that. We want to put this stuff in front and center." And I'm like, "Wow, that's awesome."
Right.
I think the indie comic scene. It's underestimated how big it actually is. I mean, you can get Marvel, DC stuff anywhere, but also, people are kind of sick of it now, I feel like, because we've had so many movies of it and so many versions of the same movie over and over, so many origin stories done over and over. And it's like, how many
Yeah, it's
times can
like
you beat a dead horse?
you have to come up with something like iconic. This is a really good story. Like I'm big on good stories. Like
Of
they just
course.
figure like the closest it is to something that's sold before, even if it sells less, that's a moneymaker. And they
Yeah,
just keep doing it. Like remember the comic The Walking Dead? And they made into a
absolutely.
series,
Yeah.
and the whole reason why the series stopped is because it never evolves. It just keeps going and going. It's
Mm.
the same thing. So finally, when they ended it, they're like, "All right, well, it's kind of run its course," and they just ended it. So there's no like
Yeah.
careful soft landing or anything. It's just like, "All right, done." Because after a
Yeah.
while, it was like, "Okay, where's this going?"
Yeah.
Like it
It,
started out
it
with
got
like a
boring
great
after a
premise
while.
and all that, and then
Yeah.
you're like, it's just the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people even stopped watching like halfway through it. I mean, I was one of those people. I was just like, "Are we evolving here? Is anything changing?" I
Right.
kind of don't. I kind of don't care about the characters anymore. And then characters
Yeah.
kept dying, and then they kept bringing in new characters. And I was like, "Why am I supposed to care about these new characters? You spent all this time evolving these other ones, and you killed them off, and now I don't care about these new
Right.
people." But I mean,
Well, I
it
think
makes
when
it
they
makes money, so
killed Glenn and Abraham when their heads got caved
yeah.
in, I think they
That's
lost like
kind of when
half
I
their
checked out.
audience. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I watched like maybe one season after that, and it didn't seem to be getting any better or different.
It
It was
didn't
just
go
more of the same.
anywhere. Yeah,
No.
and the guy Negan, the guy who like bashes in their head, like
Yeah.
he kind of gets like I don't know what the word is, like reconditioned,
Yeah. He becomes a good guy.
reassimilated, and like so
Yeah.
he's not such a bad guy anymore. I'm like, wait a minute, he fucking caved in your best friend's head.
Yeah. Let's all just forget that he's a murdering scumbag,
Yeah,
and bring him into the
exactly.
fold. Like, you can't just change a character that drastically and have no one notice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It seems ridiculous to me, but hey,
Yeah, just
people want what they
escape
like.
the point of credibility, with that.
Yeah.
So, all right,
Absolutely.
so let's get back to yours. So, can we go off of these side topics? We're talking about other stuff, but so what is a general premise of your series?
Okay, so as I said before, it's basically it's about a high school that teaches kids to be criminals. So, and you would think because of that premise, it would focus more on the gangs and the kids that are actually learning these skills. Well, actually, it's not. It's about the kids that are stuck in the school that don't want to be there. So they're new students in some cases, or some cases they've been there a
Are they
while.
kind of being like forced into something they don't want to be, or pushed into it?
Yeah, it's because there's two types of students really. Well, three. There's the ones that are sponsored by crime families. so that when they get out, they can become hitmen and pimps and drug dealers or whatever. Then there's two gangs in this school, which are the two biggest gangs in the school, but they're local kids. So they're kind of like the Bloods and the Crips of the school.
Okay.
And then you have the kids that have to go there because they're so poor, they have no other option.
Okay.
So they have to be in this school. And this story is really about those kids. They're stuck in the middle, being exploited, being beaten, being, taught the bare minimum of how to get by in society, but they're not being taught how to, be a successful criminal when they get out. So it's about kind of these kids being pushed to their limits and then how far they're willing to go to survive, essentially. Are they willing to turn into just as bad as the people that put them there or are in there with them? Or are they just going to shut down? Are they going to give up? A lot of it is about revenge. I think a lot of my themes that I like to write about revenge. I think everybody can relate to a good revenge story.
Yeah.
And
like John Wick. You see John Wick?
Absolutely, yeah. I
After they killed the dog, I'm like, that's it.
Yeah, it's all over. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, the car pretty bad, but once the dog goes, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing with good revenge stories. Like, people don't understand. You have to have something really heinous happen in the beginning for the audience to root for them to do something even worse to the people that did it. Right. You know what I mean? Like, that's why RoboCop was so good. The way
that was another awesome
fucking
classic.
Brutal.
Yeah.
That when he went and systematically killed every single one of those guys in horrible ways, you were, as an audience member, was going, absolutely, they deserve that. They deserve every fucking thing they get.
The director, Paul Verhoeven, he said, I'm not going to have the time for like a long character development, so I'll just have like a good guy brutally killed, so you're rooting for him to destroy everyone.
It worked. It fucking worked, man. I mean, I've seen that movie probably over 100 times, and every time I'm still like, these guys got to die. They got to go.
Yeah. But, so have you seen Gen V or The Boys?
Oh, yeah, love them both. The Boys is probably the best thing on TV right now, yeah.
I'd agree, actually. But have you seen Gen V with kids in the school? Yeah.
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Is your comic a little bit like that? Like, are they super powered? Or are they just kind of normal people?
No, they're not super powered. In that way, it's more like Sin City. So, there's a lot of violence going on within this city. So eventually the next book, I'm already, about 10 pages in of the next one. It's going to expand to the whole city. So the whole city, you're going to see why this city is so corrupt. It's essentially like the worst city in the world. Okay. But then you think, oh, well,
there's a lot of contradiction for that, but
yeah, that's true. Right now there is. But yeah, this book is contained solely within the school. So it's essentially the worst school in the world, within the worst city in the world. So that was my goal, really, to just go, okay, well, what would the worst school in the world be like? And that's what I tried to show. It's just gratuitous violence and just non-stop, just insanity, really.
Right. Well, that's going off topic a little bit. That's what makes The Boys so good. It's like things are just going like just something is like so like out of the pocket that you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like that gay guy whose partner does some coke and then crawls up his dick. And then
yeah, that's insane. Yeah.
You're like, holy fuck, they went there.
Yeah, even in The Boys when they had that orgy with all the superheroes, that was crazy, dude. I didn't think you could put that on TV, and they can put it on TV.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, they can't go farther. And I was like, holy shit, they did go farther.
Yeah, every time you think they've topped themselves, there's another level. Yeah, I love it. I love things that do that really just blow your mind, and it's hard to do these days because everyone thinks they've seen everything with the internet and,
But I guess you haven't met Garth Ennis.
Well, that's true. Yeah. He's a brilliant writer. I mean, even with Crossed, man, have you seen that? Read that?
No, I actually have Crossed here. I haven't read it yet. I love Preacher though. Preacher was
Yeah,
amazing.
Preacher, that's what got me into his writing, man. Yeah, and then I couldn't believe they were making a show out of that too, and that was pretty
I thought the
good.
comics are way better than the show. Way
I did
better.
too. I did too. But I think the problem was they shifted the seasons around and the books, and they changed certain things in
I think
certain
the problem is,
characters.
yeah, I think the problem is like they kind of like people always think like a lot of Hollywood people think they're smarter than the writers. So
Big mistake.
like with like going back to RoboCop and Frank Miller, like
Yeah,
after Dark Knight blew up so big, they asked him to write RoboCop 2. So
yeah,
he wrote RoboCop 2, and they're like, "Yeah, you don't know Hollywood." So then they brought
yeah,
somebody else in to rewrite it, and then
yeah,
they rewrote it, and then all the test screeners said it's horrible. So then they went back to Frank Miller, and he was like, "Yeah, fuck you guys." So
yeah.
then they brought a third guy in. So if you watch the movie and you look at the screenwriters, there are three screenwriters. And Frank
That's
Miller's like,
insane.
I'm never going to deal with Hollywood ever again. And he
Yeah,
finally did when Rodriguez came to him for Sin City and said, I will let you co-direct with me. And
yeah,
Rodriguez actually got kicked out of the directors of Hollywood, the guild or whatever, because
yeah.
he brought in somebody who wasn't a member.
Oh my God, that's ridiculous. Because that movie was perfect. That's the perfect comic adaptation
That was awesome, yeah.
because he was so involved in it, and also Rodriguez knew his vision so well. He was like, every scene has to look exactly like it looks on the page, and he
Yeah.
fucking did it, man, and it came out perfectly. I loved it, every single second of it.
Yeah,
So good.
I like his stuff, period. Like, if you saw Planet Terror,
Yeah, it was so good. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
But
violent. Yeah, I loved it.
I think what people should take away from all this is indie stuff actually has a lot more going for it than mainstream
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely. I agree with you. Yeah.
So, who did you get to illustrate your series for you?
I illustrated it myself.
Okay.
So I
And,
wrote it and illustrated it.
okay, so kind of like Frank Miller, like, story and
Yeah.
art. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Did
that was
you,
kind of the goal in the beginning, because I couldn't find a publisher. I started writing this years ago and illustrating it years ago, but I've always been kind of an artist first. So I like to start with the artwork and then figure out what the people are going to be saying to each other, and then I start writing the dialogue. But yeah, if it was up to me, I would have paid someone else to color it. But I think it works in kind of black and white with splashes of color here and there, especially where the blood pops out
right.
on the page. But
No,
yeah,
that can be a really good look. So it kind of depends on how it's played, but if you play it right, I think it's an awesome look.
yeah, for sure.
So you like things have totally changed. Like back in the day, like when I was trying to pitch my comic, and I'd be like, I want to write it, I want to draw it, and I want to ink it. And I remember when I interviewed with DC Comics, and they were like, well, your pencils are a little too detailed for most inkers. And I was like, I'll ink it. And they're like, oh, no, no, no. But I mean, they're worried about like matching a timetable. Like they want
Mm,
24 pages a month. And they figure you want like most of their really good artists have had problems like doing 24 pages a month. Like that's why you'll notice like they do like 4 issues and they have like a guest artist or a guest inker.
mm,
That's why, because they can meet those deadlines. Because deadlines, that's impossible. Like I notice a lot of indie comics these days, they'll do like an issue every 3 months or an issue every 4 months. They take the time to put out quality.
yeah, I'd much prefer waiting for something that's better quality than have it churned out and be garbage. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah,
That's why I think graphic novels are such a good medium. You can just take your time to create a whole book, and then you get all the story all at once. But you
right.
get also the quality in the writing and the artwork. You know what I mean? That's kind of when I started this. Because it's 4 short stories set split into 5 chapters. So one of the stories is split into two. But I essentially, when I first started writing it, I was planning on pitching it to Heavy Metal magazine,
Okay.
because they're short stories, But then I just kept going and going, and then I was like, you know what? I think I have enough here that I could just turn it into a graphic novel. And then
It's
I
funny.
started
I
pitching it
just
to publishing
interviewed one of
companies.
the head guys at Have Metal Magazine, but yeah, go ahead.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then, after that, I just started looking for publishers, and that was like a 2 year process because no one wants to take a chance on the new guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though, my artwork is good and I get a lot of good feedback about it, I was lucky enough to hook up with these Wild North comic guys, and now we've all got each other's back. We all have guys in different states around Australia, and we're starting to, distribute throughout different countries. And whenever one of us goes to a comic convention, we sell each other's stuff and promote each other's books and our own, and I think that's
Okay.
a good
Awesome.
way to do it. Yeah, we've all got to build each other up, because if one of us wins, we all win. The company wins, comics win.
It's funny how that works. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah.
think people would get that, but they don't get that. Yeah.
No, there's a lot of selfish people out there, especially in this industry, I feel like. But, it is what it
But
is.
I always feel like if you scratch the other person's back, like it elevates everybody. And
Yeah,
there are
for
people
sure.
that they're amazing, but people are like, yeah, but they're such a dick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. And I mean, even when you go to conventions and stuff and you meet people, just giving someone or receiving like a comment about your book or your art, that means the world to an artist. You know what I mean? And
Right.
it's like, dude, like, yeah, I've got so much respect for your work, and give me your social details, and we'll just be mates. We'll promote each
Yeah.
other. That's the way to do it.
Well, I remember I was at some comic convention and Neil Adams, like the people from Neil Adams Studio came by and they really liked my stuff. So that put me on a high all day because they were so nice to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, a couple of months ago, I went to a convention, and a guy came up to my table, and he was an older guy, and he goes, "Oh, your work reminds me of Jeff Darrow." And I was like, "Thanks." That's exactly what I was going for. That even to be compared in the same class as him for me is
Yeah, that's a great
mind blowing.
compliment.
But then I was talking to him, and I realized he personally knew Jeff Darrow. He was
Okay.
personal friends with him, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is insane!" Like I'm 1 degree away from my hero right now, and he was
Oh,
telling
that's
me all these
awesome. Yeah.
stories about how he developed his style and how he studied with Mobius, and I was just like, "This is insanity!" Like,
That's
yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
I was gonna say it's amazing that somebody even knows who Jack Doe is. Like I do, but I'm a
Yeah.
comic nerd.
Yeah, well, that's the thing at conventions. Sometimes I have to explain it to people, but a lot of the time I don't. I'm amazed that there's more people than I thought there was out there that actually know who he is and what he does. So that's pretty
Okay.
awesome.
Yeah, no, that
Yeah.
is awesome. So, how many issues do you have out so far?
Well, it's a graphic novel, so it's completely done. So
Okay.
this is it. It's 80 pages, and it's four stories split into five chapters. So as you can see here.
Okay.
And so this is a pre-launch issue, and I've only
Okay.
got like 100 of these, and I've only been selling these at conventions. You can't get these anywhere else, because I sign them and I number them.
So if it's
Um,
80 pages and it's four stories, so they roughly 20 pages each.
about that, yeah, yeah.
Like are
And
some a
there's
little bit longer, some a little bit shorter.
yeah, they're not. I didn't try to keep them exact. I just went where the story was taking me.
Okay.
If I was writing one story and I found it more interesting, I was just like, I'm just going to roll with this and keep going until it comes to its natural conclusion in my mind. And yeah, I think that works well. And that's the reason one of them, the first chapter, is the longest. So I decided to split that into two parts, or bookends the book. The first half of it is at the start, and the second half is at the end. And I think it actually works better that way. And my editor really helped me out with that, because I wouldn't have come to that conclusion on my own. And yeah, it I think it came out fantastic. Yeah. But
Okay.
that
Awesome.
being said, the book it is on Kickstarter, so this is a pre-launch version. Like I said, the actual final version will be only available through Kickstarter, and that's we're going to be launching that at the end of this month. So
Okay.
hopefully everything goes good with that.
Okay, how long is the Kickstarter campaign?
We're just going for a month. So we're
Okay,
in pre-launch now. We've been in pre-launch for a couple of months now, and we've got up to 104 followers now, I think last time I
okay.
checked. So hopefully we can get a few more before we launch and yeah, make it big. That's the
So
plan.
are you going to launch one for every issue? Like I know a lot of indie comic people, that's what they do. They launch a campaign before every new issue. So is it that kind of what you had planned?
Um, no, I mean because it's a book, I'm just gonna release it as a book because I think it works better that way. I mean, I kind of always wanted to do graphic novels rather than comics, but the next one I might have to do that because the next one's going to be like 130 pages. It might even be longer now. Um, but yeah, because it takes so long to draw them, maybe putting out one at a time is the way to go with the next one. But also, I want to color it, so it's going to add a bit of time.
Well, it's a lot more. It's a lot easier these days. Like I remember back in the old days, we'd have to print it, and we'd have to print it on watercolor paper, and then we have to do the watercolor color, then we have to print it on transparency and put that over top of it, so you had clean lines over top of the colors. Now they just go on the computer and they do it.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started, I was doing it by hand on paper and then scanning it. And then, I mean, that was before I started with this book, really. But then now I'd use a tablet for everything, and it just makes it so much easier. Like you were saying before, like they didn't want you to ink your own work. Well, now you can kind of do it straight onto a tablet. You know what I mean? It's pretty easy these days. Which is good for indie comics. Because anybody can do it. Really, you just got to apply yourself and take the time.
Right. Well, I've also seen some like amazing results because, like Marvel DC, you said like four color print system. You know the whole thing with like the dots and whatever. And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
I remember I did some stuff for Dynamite, and Blair Smith came in, and he's really talented. And he did the colors. I was like, holy shit! You brought it. It's like it's computer color, and he brought it a whole like perfect, smooth transitions, perfect saturation. It's just
yeah,
like I said, you brought it to a whole new level.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. So you've done work for Dynamite, have you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
that's awesome.
I did. I have friends who they do the Living Corpse comic. Yeah, I've done
Oh,
stuff with that. So I'll send you some stuff so you can see. Like my biggest, a lot of people compare me to like John Tolman. I mean, he's awesome. So I don't want to say I am John Tolman, but
yeah, yeah,
they're like, oh, that reminds me of something you do.
yeah.
Um,
That's cool.
but
Yeah, because I recently won a competition for Dynamite Comics for Red Sonja,
okay.
and yeah, I did.
I know there's been like multiple itinerations, but
Yeah,
they don't have the rights. Like the people who do it, like Marvel did it for a while, they don't have the rights to it. Like they're
yeah,
loaned the rights, or they're leased the rights for a little
yeah. They
while.
lease it out.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then they're reversed back to the original source. And I know a lot of people do stuff for Dynamite, like Garth Ennis has done stuff. So like you have
Oh
everybody
wow,
from like more indie projects to more like mainstream stuff.
that's awesome. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I've got a cover. A Red Sonja cover is going to be on one of their books coming out later this year, so that's pretty awesome. I
Yeah,
mean, that's
cool.
the closest I've gotten to the big ones, but so far.
Right, well, it's kind of it seems like the big ones are going away. So you know,
That's true. Yeah.
it used to be if it wasn't Marvel or DC, it didn't matter. But then there was Image, there was Dark
Mm.
Horse, all these people that were kind of breaking the boundaries. And nowadays, I mean, IDW, Dynamite.
Yeah.
I mean, you have like the big distribution centers like a Diamond are like dissolving.
Yeah. They
So
went bankrupt, didn't they?
I think they were on their way. I don't know if they did.
Yeah. Crazy.
But all right, so the best way to see your stuff would be on Kickstarter. Do you have a website
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah, well, Wild North Comics so they represent me. So if you just go to Wild North Comics / the underclass, you'll find my
Okay.
book. You can even get a free preview download from there. And even on the Kickstarter, there's a link to the free preview download. So that will take you to my page on there as well. And if you want to see my work, just check out kgdesigns .art on Instagram.
Okay. Do you have on the Kickstarter? Do you have a reward tiers? Like if they pledge a certain amount, they get like a plushie, or like I know Teresa Grant does that. Like she gives like you
Yeah.
get plushies, you can get like magnets or stickers or whatever.
Well, I've got 2 other books coming out with it because I have such a huge catalog of work that I've done in my past that's not even really comic related. It's just kind of me creating stuff, my art style. A lot of it started out as like t-shirt designs, some of it's like tattoo designs, things like that. So one of them is this. It's called Maximum Volume.
Okay.
And this is my art book. And it's just like, it's a hardcover art book, and it's got all of the art that I've done throughout the years and all the different styles that
Okay,
I've
awesome.
done.
And what is that available anywhere, like Amazon or anything like that, or you have to
No,
run
not
a
yet.
campaign and put it up?
Yeah, you can only get it through the Kickstarter. Yeah.
Okay.
And also we've got this one, and this is a coloring book. Because
Okay.
my line work is so in depth and detailed, we just stripped away all of the color
Okay.
and said, okay, well, people can color it themselves. Yeah. And people seem to like it,
Or maybe not, but at least they have good line work to back it up.
Well, yeah, of course, people, I mean, I get some interesting comments about that one. I think it's it's a niche kind of thing. I like it. I thought it was a great idea. Why not? Adult coloring books seem to be more and more popular these days, and why not make it like extreme?
Yeah, make it a little bit interactive, so
Yeah.
people can get involved. All right, so last thing I'll ask you is like I know some people hate to compare this stuff, but the reason I asked them to compare it is because I'm like, if you like this like well-known property, you would also like my stuff. So what would you say is kind of like a similar vibe?
Okay. Well, if I had to compare it, this is what I've been saying. It's kind of Sin City meets Deadly Class. That's essentially kind of what it is. But my publisher told me it's a lot like Clockwork Orange. And
Okay.
I thought that was a good comparison because it kind of is. I mean, that wasn't my goal when I was writing it, but it does kind of come off that way. So it's
I've
kind of
read
all
both
those.
the book and I watched the movie, and they're actually very similar.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay. That's one of the ones that did it right then.
yeah,
Yeah, I've seen the movie a bunch of times, and yeah, I'm a big fan of it. So maybe it was in my subconscious when I was writing and I didn't realize. But yeah, it's ultra violence, they say that a lot in that movie, and that's what my publisher likes to call it, it's than what I
right.
do. Yeah.
But did they drink
So
milk as well?
well, no, there's no milk drinking. There's a lot of blood though.
But all right, so Wild North Comics is probably the best way to get a hold of you, and
Yep.
we'll put the link for your Kickstarter. Tell the audience if they're listening and not watching what they should look for on Kickstarter.
Well, we've got some great rewards. We've got an art book. We've got a
But
coloring
I mean,
book.
like, mainly the link. Like, what link would they type in?
Oh, okay. Well, it's a long link.
But
So it's
is
up.
there like, would they look up Wild North Comics? Would they look up a specific title?
I would just go to Kickstarter and type in the underclass, and it will be the
Okay,
first thing that comes up. Yeah,
okay,
I've done it a bunch of times, and it always comes up. So just do that. If you can do that, you're sweet. Yeah.
okay, awesome. All right, man. So, do you have anything else you want to throw out there to the social cosmic sphere?
Not that I can think of, other than I'm available for cover work if anyone wants some.
Okay, and what would be the best way to get a hold of you for that? Would they email you?
Probably go to my Instagram probably and message me through there. And but through my Instagram you can get to my link tree and all my ways to contact me through there. Yeah,
Okay, and what's your Instagram?
it's kgdesigns.art.
Okay, awesome. All right, man. Well, thanks for doing this interview. And
Yeah, thanks
do you
for
have
having
anything
me.
else you want to add?
No, that's all, man. But except for, thanks for having me. It's been a blast, and yeah, cool.